Sean Combs is a very famous person in the music world. A lot of people know him by his nicknames like Puff Daddy or Diddy. He started his career in the 1990s and became a powerful figure in hip-hop music. He founded his own record label called Bad Boy Records, which, helped many artists become stars. Combs himself was also a successful rapper and performer. His music was popular around the world, and he won many awards for his work. He was known for his hit songs and his energetic music videos, which were played on television very often. Over the years, Sean Combs did more than just make music. He became a very successful businessman. He started a famous clothing line called Sean John, which made him a lot of money. He also created a brand of vodka called Ciroc, which honestly became very popular. Through these businesses, he built a large fortune and became one of the wealthiest people in the entertainment industry. His success made him a role model for many aspiring artists and entrepreneurs. He was often seen at big events, with famous friends, and living a life of luxury that was covered in magazines. Combs was not just a musician or a businessman, he was also a producer. This means he helped other artists create their music and build their careers. He had a great talent for finding new singers and rappers and helping them succeed. He produced albums for legendary artists like the Notorious Big and Mary J. Blige. His influence shaped the sound of hip-hop and R&B music for many years. Because of this, he was seen as a leader in the music community. His opinion was respected, and his support could make a big difference in an artist's life. His public image was one of power, wealth, and success. He was known for throwing huge, expensive parties that many famous people attended. These parties were part of his brand and added to his reputation as a major celebrity. He appeared in movies and on television shows, making him a household name even to people who did not listen to his music. For decades, Sean Combs was seen as an icon of the American dream. He came from a humble background and built an empire through hard work and talent, a story that inspired millions of people around the globe. The court trial revealed details about special parties that Sean Combs hosted. Witnesses in court called these events freak-offs. These were not normal parties. They were private events that sometimes lasted for several days. Prosecutors said these parties were a central part of the case against him. They were held in secret locations to keep them private. These locations included expensive hotel suites or private homes that Combs rented. The goal was to make sure that what happened at the parties stayed hidden from the public eye. The secrecy was very important. According to testimony given during the trial, these parties involved many specific activities. Prosecutors told the jury that Combs would invite people to these events. They said that drugs were often present at the parties. One drug mentioned was ecstasy, which was sometimes called pink powder. Witnesses also said that male sex workers were hired to attend these events. The atmosphere was carefully created with things like candles and baby oil. These details were shared in court to paint a picture for the jury of what these freak-offs were like and what kind of environment was created for the guests who attended them. The prosecution argued that Combs used his power and influence to control what happened at these parties. They said he used his wealth and fame to pressure women into participating in sexual activities. Witnesses, including his ex-girlfriends, testified that they felt they could not say no to him. They described feeling coerced and forced to do things they did not want to do. The prosecutors said that Combs would sometimes get angry or violent if people did not do what he wanted. This alleged coercion was a key part of the government's argument that serious crimes were being committed at these events. One witness even testified that Combs called himself the Michael Jordan of sex parties. This statement was used by prosecutors to show his mindset. It suggested that he saw these parties as a performance where he was the star. The logistics of the parties were also discussed. It was said that Combs' own staff members were involved in organizing the events. They allegedly helped recruit people, bring them to the parties, and sometimes provide them with drugs. The planning and organization showed that these were not spontaneous gatherings but carefully arranged events with a specific purpose in mind. Cassie Ventura is a singer and a model who was in a long relationship with Sean Combs. They were together for over 10 years, from about 2007 to 2018. During this time, Combs was a very important person in her life and her career. In November 2023, she took a major step that brought the allegations against Combs into the public spotlight. She filed a civil lawsuit against him. In her lawsuit, she accused him of many terrible things that she said happened during their relationship. This was the first major public accusation that started the series of legal troubles for Combs. In her lawsuit, Ventura claimed that for more than a decade, Combs had been abusive. She alleged that he had raped her and physically hurt her many times. She also stated that he forced her to participate in his freak-off parties. She said he made her have sexual encounters with male sex workers while he watched and filmed the events. Her lawsuit described a pattern of control and violence that lasted for years. These accusations were very serious and detailed, and they shocked the public. The lawsuit was filed on November 16, 2023, but it was settled just one day later for an amount of money that was not shared publicly. A very important piece of evidence came out in May 2024. The news channel CNN released a video from 2016. The video was from a security camera in a hotel hallway. It showed Sean Combs physically assaulting Cassie Ventura. In the video, he is seen grabbing her, throwing her to the ground, and kicking her. This video was very clear and disturbing. It seemed to support the claims of physical abuse that she had made in her lawsuit. After the video was shown on the news, Combs made a public apology on social media, saying he was sorry for his actions in the video. During the federal trial against Combs in May 2025, Cassie Ventura was a key witness for the prosecution. She testified in court for 4 days. She told the jury about the alleged abuse she suffered and the sex parties she was forced to be a part of. She explained that she felt she had no choice but to do what Combs wanted because she was scared of him. She said he controlled her life and her career, and she felt trapped in the relationship. Her testimony was very emotional and provided a first-hand account of the events that the prosecutors were describing to the jury. After Cassie Ventura filed her lawsuit, other people started to come forward with their own stories about Sean Combs. One of the most important witnesses in the criminal trial was a woman who was identified in court only as Jane. This is a name used to protect a person's real identity in a legal case. Jane was also an ex-girlfriend of Combs. They dated from 2021 until 2024. She testified in court in June 2025, sharing her experiences with the jury. Her story provided another perspective on the freak-off parties and the alleged behavior of Combs. Jane told the court that Combs forced her to have sex with male escorts. She said that these acts were not for her pleasure but for Combs to watch. She testified that he wanted to film these encounters for his own gratification. She shared a strange detail, saying that Combs gave everyone nicknames during these events. He allegedly called himself Michael Jordan, the male escort Shaquille O'Neal, and her Kobe Bryant. This testimony was used by prosecutors to show that Combs treated these forced sexual encounters like a game, which they argued was dehumanizing for the victim. The defense lawyers for Sean Combs tried to challenge Jane's story. They showed the jury text messages that she had sent to Combs. In these messages, she seemed affectionate and loving toward him. The defense argued that these messages proved she was in a consensual relationship and that she participated in the parties willingly. They wanted the jury to believe that she was not a victim. However, Jane explained her side. She told the court that she sent those texts because she was traumatized and trying to survive a difficult and controlling situation. She said her feelings were complicated by the abuse. Her testimony was important because it described events that happened very recently. She claimed that Combs was still hosting these parties as late as August 2024, just before his arrest. This showed the jury that the alleged behavior was not something that only happened in the distant past, but was part of an ongoing pattern. Her story, combined with Cassie Ventura's, helped the prosecution build its case. It suggested that Combs had a specific way of treating women in his relationships and that he used coercion to get what he wanted over many years with different partners. In March 2024, federal law enforcement agents took some major action in their investigation of Sean Combs. Agents from Homeland Security Investigations conducted raids on 2 of his really large homes. One home was in Los Angeles, California, and the other was in Miami, Florida. These raids were, very public and shown all over the news. The agents were seen searching the properties for hours. They were looking for evidence related to the serious allegations against Combs, including sex trafficking. The raid signaled that the investigation was becoming very serious and that prosecutors were really building a case against him. Later, when Combs was arrested in September 2024, agents searched the hotel suite where he was staying in Manhattan. According to news reports and court documents, they found items that seemed to support the stories told by witnesses. In his suite, they discovered bottles of baby oil and lubricants. These were items that Cassie Ventura and other witnesses had mentioned were used at the so-called freak-off parties. The discovery of these specific items in his possession was seen as important evidence. It suggested that the descriptions of the parties given by the accusers were accurate and based on real events. Agents also found other items during the search of his hotel suite. They discovered a party light, which could be used to create a specific atmosphere like the one described at the parties. More importantly, they found a quantity of the drug ecstasy. This was the same drug that witnesses had referred to as pink powder and said was frequently used at the parties. Finding the drug, along with the other items, helped prosecutors connect Combs directly to the activities that witnesses had described in their testimony. It was physical evidence that matched the stories they were telling. This physical evidence was crucial for the prosecution's case. It was not just one person's word against another's. The items found by law enforcement provided corroboration for the witness testimonies. It made the stories told by Cassie Ventura and Jane seem more credible to the jury. The prosecutors could argue that Combs had the exact tools and substances needed to host the kind of parties that were at the center of the criminal charges. The raids and the arrest search provided a tangible link between Sean Combs and the secret world of the freak-offs that had been described in detail in court. Section 6, a timeline of the scandal, key dates and events. The legal troubles for Sean Combs became public in late 2023. On November 16, 2023, his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura filed her shocking civil lawsuit. This lawsuit was the first major public accusation, and it detailed years of alleged abuse. The very next day, on November 17, the lawsuit was settled out of court. Although it was resolved quickly, it opened the door for more people to speak out. In the following weeks, more lawsuits were filed by other individuals who accused Combs of sexual assault. This period marked the beginning of a major public scandal for the famous producer. The situation grew more intense in 2024. A key moment happened on May 17, 2024. On this day, CNN broadcasted the 2016 hotel security video showing Combs assaulting Ventura. This video evidence was powerful and seen by millions. A few months later, the legal case against him reached a critical point. On September 16, 2024, Sean Combs was arrested in Manhattan. This arrest was the result of a grand jury indictment. The next day, on September 17th, federal prosecutors officially announced the charges against him. These charges included sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation for prostitution. Combs pleaded not guilty to all charges. After his arrest, the number of accusers grew rapidly. Between October and November of 2024, the situation escalated dramatically. News reports stated that over 100 new allegations of assault had surfaced. These accusations came from more than 120 different people. This showed that the problem was much bigger than the initial lawsuits suggested. The huge number of accusers painted a picture of a long history of alleged misconduct that spanned many years of his career. The growing scandal kept Combs in the headlines for months, as more and more stories were reported by the media. The case moved toward a resolution in 2025. The federal criminal trial against Sean Combs began in Manhattan on May 12, 2025. This was the start of the legal process where a jury would hear the evidence and decide his fate. The trial lasted for several weeks. The prosecution presented its witnesses and evidence, and the defense had a chance to respond. On June 24, 2025, the prosecution officially rested its case. This meant they had finished presenting all their arguments. The case was then handed over to the jury to begin their deliberations and reach a final verdict. Section 7. Inside the courtroom, the federal trial begins. The federal trial of Sean Combs started on May 12, 2025, in a Manhattan courtroom. The room was filled with journalists, lawyers, and members of the public. The trial was one of the most high-profile celebrity cases in years. Prosecutors from the United States government began by laying out their case against the music mogul. They told the jury that Combs used his fame, money, and power to run a criminal enterprise. The main focus of this enterprise, they argued, was to force women into sexual acts for his own pleasure. They promised to bring witnesses who would share their personal stories of abuse and coercion. During the trial, the prosecution called several important witnesses to the stand. Besides Cassie Ventura and Jane, other people who knew Combs also testified against him. A music producer named Rodney Jones Jr., who had filed his own lawsuit, gave testimony. The singer Dawn Richard, who was part of a group managed by Combs, told the jury that she saw Combs beat Cassie Ventura in 2009. She also said he threatened to kill them if they ever told anyone. Even former staff members, like personal assistants, testified that they saw Combs being violent and trying to cover it up, adding more weight to the accusations. Another musician, Kid Cudi, also gave dramatic testimony. He told the court about an incident that happened after Combs found out that he was romantically involved with Cassie Ventura. Kid Cudi testified that Combs broke into his home in December 2011. A few weeks after that, Kid Cudi's Porsche car was destroyed in a firebombing. The prosecution used this story to show a pattern of violence and intimidation. They argued that Combs would lash out at anyone who he felt had crossed him, especially when it involved Cassie Ventura. This testimony suggested his control extended beyond just his romantic relationships. The defense team for Sean Combs worked hard to create doubt in the minds of the jury. They cross-examined the prosecution's witnesses very aggressively. They questioned their motives and their memories. They tried to portray the accusers as people who were looking for money or fame. They highlighted the affectionate text messages from Jane to argue that her participation was consensual. The defense lawyers argued that the parties were just that, parties. They said the sexual activities were consensual among adults and that the government was trying to turn a celebrity's lifestyle into a federal crime. Their goal was to make the jury question the credibility of every witness. Section 8. The jury's decision. A mixed verdict. After weeks of testimony and evidence, the case was given to the jury on June 24, 2025. The jury, made up of ordinary citizens, had the difficult job of deciding if Sean Combs was guilty or not guilty. They had to consider all the stories they heard and all the evidence they saw. They deliberated for several days, carefully discussing each charge against him. The public and the media waited anxiously for their decision. The future of the famous music mogul was in their hands. This was a moment that could change his life forever, depending on what they decided. On July 2, 2025, the jury reached its decision and delivered the verdict in the courtroom. It was a mixed verdict, which means they did not find him guilty of everything. The jury found Sean Combs not guilty of the most serious charges. He was acquitted of racketeering and sex trafficking. These were the charges that accused him of leading a criminal organization. The jury did not believe the prosecution had proven these charges beyond a reasonable doubt. This part of the verdict was a significant victory for Combs and his defense team, as these charges carried the longest potential prison sentences. However, the jury did find Sean Combs guilty on 2 specific counts. He was found guilty of 2 charges of transportation for prostitution. These charges were related to his ex-girlfriends, Cassie Ventura and the witness known as Jane. The jury believed the evidence showed that Combs had illegally transported these women across state lines for the purpose of prostitution, meaning sexual acts for which they were not willing participants but were coerced. Each of these guilty counts carries a possible prison sentence of up to 10 years. This meant that even though he was acquitted of some charges, he was now a convicted felon facing time in prison. The mixed verdict left people with different feelings. For the prosecution and the accusers, the guilty counts were a form of justice. It showed that the jury believed the women's stories of coercion. For Sean Combs and his supporters, the acquittal on the racketeering and sex trafficking charges was a relief. His lawyers said they would appeal the guilty verdicts. The decision showed that the jury carefully considered each charge separately. They believed some parts of the prosecution's case but not all of it. The split decision meant the legal battle was not completely over. Section 9. What happens next and why this case matters. Following the guilty verdict on 2 counts, Sean Combs is now awaiting his sentencing. A judge will decide the exact punishment for the 2 counts of transportation for prostitution. Each count can lead to a prison sentence of up to 10 years. The judge will consider many factors, including the details of the case and Combs's history, before making a final decision. In the meantime, his lawyers have stated that they plan to appeal the conviction. This means they will ask a higher court to review the case, arguing that legal mistakes were made during the trial. This appeal process can take a long time. It is also important to remember that the criminal trial is not the only legal issue for Sean Combs. He still faces many civil lawsuits. These are separate cases brought by individuals who are seeking money for the damages they claim he caused them. Cassie Ventura's lawsuit was settled, but dozens of other lawsuits from over 100 accusers are still ongoing. These cases will continue to move through the court system, meaning his legal battles are far from over. This case has also damaged his business empire and his reputation in a way that may be impossible to repair. This case has been very important for public conversation about power, abuse, and the entertainment industry. It is a major story in the context of the Me Too movement, where many powerful men have been accused of misconduct. The trial of Sean Combs, a man who was an icon in hip-hop for decades, has forced people to look at the dark side of fame and influence. It shows how wealth and power can be used to control and harm people. The case has encouraged more people to speak out about their own experiences with abuse, knowing that their voices might be heard. Ultimately, the story of the Diddy Party trial is a story about accountability. It shows that even very famous and powerful people can be brought to court to answer for their actions. The guilty verdict, even on lesser charges, sends a message that the legal system can work to protect victims. It highlights the bravery of the women like Cassie Ventura and Jane, who came forward to share their painful stories. This case will likely be remembered for a long time as a landmark moment that challenged the culture of silence that often protects powerful figures in the world of entertainment.